Welcome to Music 320 Week 13 Lesson 3 using the Visi modules. Now, what are the Visi modules? The Visi modules are a collection of B-patchers, essentially, that have been designed and included with Max. And these are modules that are specifically designed to work in the jitter world. So video manipulation, generate video, process video, display video, mix video, and so on. So if you look down the left side of your window, you'll see there's a V. And the V, if you click on it, opens up a long list, which are all the Visi modules that have been included in the Max 8. You can see there are things like a fader, a grabber, a randomizer, a projector, a resampler, a scrubber, a sketcher, a slider. There's all kinds of things that will perform different operations. And you can see the categories: controller, effects, generate, inputs, and so on. So the design is very much like the UBC toolbox. Let's bring a few of these out and you can see how they work. So the first one I want to bring out is the player. Which is here. I'm going to pull it out and let go, and it simply appears there, ready to be used. And I'm going to pull out a couple of modules, actually effects modules. Let's bring out the precursor we kind of already looked at. Let's bring out the fogger and the pixelator. And maybe one more. How about the freezer? Well, why not? I don't actually know what the freezer does, so I don't know if it's going to be useful or not. But anyway, we've got it. And then let's bring out a jit.p window, so we can see the results of our processing. Okay. Now to begin with, we're going to drag a movie into this folder. And why don't we begin with our friend, the bee on the sunflower. So I drag it into that area, and it already has started to play. We can control the speed of playback. We can slow it down. We can turn the looping on and off. We can scrub through the movie. And you can see that each of these modules has an output, video output. The first outlet is a video outlet, and the first inlet is a video inlet. So we can maybe send the video out of the player and into the fogger, and out of the fogger and into the P window. And you can see already that the fogger has completely distorted this image. There's a probability value, which is the probability of the pixels staying where they are versus them jumping to a different location randomly on each frame. So it's kind of like a jitter effect where the colors get scattered and it gets blurry. Kind of a nice object, but you can see that we can control the X range of pixel offsets, the Y range of pixel offsets, and the probability that they're going to offset. So, I mean, if we don't want them to move very much, we can bring the X and Y down, and then the blurring is not quite as extreme as it is if we have values much higher. If we have these values very high, it gets very, very blurry. Right? So you can't even see the image anymore. All right, so we can play. Once we figure out what the object does, we can control it with these sliders. And of course, we can put messages into these objects. So almost all of the objects take floating point values between 0 and 1 as their control. So if we can see this working now, we're going negative here. Trying to go between 0 and 1. So there's all the way down to 0 and all the way up to 1. And that would control the probability of these pixels jumping around. Okay, we've got another sort of pixelator. This is a different kind of pixelator. Let's see what it does. So I'll connect it into the chain. And you can see that, yeah, it basically turns the display into large or small pixels, right? So there's the image, and if we want to pixelate it, we can increase the pixel size. You can see around here. Basically, it's pushing it through a matrix that is that has a smaller size, and that creates the pixelation. I'm not sure what the freezer does, so I'm not sure. I can bring it up here, and usually if you hover over it tells you what it is. I see. If the incoming value is higher than a certain breakpoint, then it freezes the image. So it'll be frozen in place. Doesn't sound particularly fun. I'm gonna delete it. It's gone. I'll find something a little bit more. Maybe we could bring in the delayer in, but the delayer really only works with images that are moving. It basically creates a feedback loop of frames. Let's bring the precursor in. You know, we know that it will do a lot to our image, so let's do that. And we'll take the video out of here into the precursor, and we've got some very strange values in here. Let's put it back. Try to get some brightness values and contrast values. There we go. And saturation values. Okay. I actually like the fact that you can't really make out the image anymore. You know, that if this were moving image, it would you know, would be a little more interesting. Okay, so let's stop it for a second, and we can actually turn some of. You can turn these all off as well, and we get just our regular image there. And let's actually look at a couple of other objects. At least one more object, and that would be the there's a object called audio to Visi. And the audio to Visi is really just an object that takes sound and converts it into control messages for Visi. So it's not that different from what we did before. But let's put in an EZ ADC and connect it up to the audio in. As we always do, putting a live.gain in so we can check that we've got reasonable samples coming in. And we do. And then the right outlet of this will be kind of it's really an amplitude value. So we look at it and we see that, yeah, we got values between about 0 and 0.1 when things get a little bit loud. Actually, not getting that high. It's an audio signal, but it's not that high. Okay, so let's map some of these things. So I'm going to bring in the scale object, and as always, when I'm using the scale object, I think to myself, okay, what is the lowest value? What is the highest value? Looks to be like 0.5 or 0.05 seems to be about as high as this is giving us. And then what kind of values do I want to come out of here? Well, let's say I go into the fogger and I want values between, I don't know, 0.2 and 1.0, right? So again, I don't go too far before I test these out and see, okay, what kind of output values am I getting? Well, yeah, it gets up close to 1. Let's take this and yeah, let's set it so that it can never go more than 1.0 and never less than 0, just to make sure my values are good. And let's take this into, for example, the fogger. We don't need that anymore. And let's turn the fogger back on. And let's play the video again. So you can see what's happening now. My voice is controlling the degree of pixelation of the fogger. And it's working pretty well, but it's a bit jittery, so I'm getting good response. If I don't want things to be so jittery, I can put a line in. So I'm going to, actually I won't disconnect that yet. I'm going to put a line, just a regular line, because this is not a signal. And I am going to push a message, $1, let's say in 500 milliseconds. So what I'm doing is, rather than jumping to values, I'm going to slide to the values over half a second. And that's going to smooth out the changes. So just a second here. And I'm going to put a value of 10 in there as my grain time. Okay. So now you can see that when I'm talking, I'm getting response, but I'm not getting such incredibly jittery response. So if I were playing an instrument and I wanted to be expressive, I could use this to control the color of the image. I could do similar things with other, put it in other places. So let's disconnect that. Let's go into the Bricosa. So what you typically do when you're trying to figure out what values to use is put a floating point box, floating point number box, connect it to, this would be the brightness control. So, how bright do we want it? I'm going too far. This is off right now. Turn it back on. Let's put it at 0. You'll notice, as I am, that when you're using a lot of jitter, your computer starts to slow down. Yeah, so there's our sort of brightness range there. A very small amount, between like this actual control has a much wider range of values. So I'm going to go between 0.52 and 1.12. So again, I duplicate this, and I said 0.52 to, what did I say? 0.52 to 1.2. Okay, maybe that's a little bit much. Not 62, 0.62. Test. Test. Yeah, I was looking at the number in the brightness and not the number in the slider. But now, again, I've got a kind of a responsive thing. I'm pixelating more, and I'm processing the brightness with my voice. Again, I could put a line control in there if I want. I could take this go through the line, disconnect that. Well, maybe I should just make another line. And connect that here. So now I have a little bit more of a kind of gentle pixelation and brightening of the sound as it's coming in. And I haven't done anything with the pixelator, but I could do that as well. Changing, oh, gotta turn it back on, and changing the pixelization, change these values, pixelating it. So now you can't actually tell what it is, but you can see that it's responding to my voice. And a different image, bringing in a different image will have a very different effect. So why don't we bring in a different image just to see what that looks like. It's the kid playing basketball. It's a classic. It's used all the time in the Max examples. There he is. It's not a very high resolution image, so we've got to increase our pixels so at least we can see the thing. Oh, not my favorite image at all, but you can see what's happening. We're pixelating it, and with this you're probably better off with a more abstract image anyway. Okay, enough of the basketball. Okay, so there's an example of using the Visi modules. There are lots and lots of Visi modules. We just looked at like 4 of them, but there's about 80. So, but I think the most important thing is that you can see how you can work with them, how you figure out what range of values should be used, connecting them up, putting lines in to smooth things out, and connecting it into audio in some capacity. We could just use the peak amp. You could also use the pitch tracker and track pitch and map that to video processing. So that's a brief introduction to the Visi modules. Thank you.